artwork.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Today is Monday, January 13th. We did call our board to order at 4:30, and we met in closed session to discuss the sale of real estate, followed by an exempt meeting to discuss strategy sessions for union and non-union employees. So we have been here for a little bit, and we are now reconvening. So I'll turn this over to Dave for a superintendent's report.
Well, thank you. I would just call your attention to the monitors as we continue to explore how this facility can best represent the school district. We're pleased to put up some student artwork before every board meeting. So as you come in, please enjoy the work. Winter weather has caused 3 school-related school cancellations so far. Those makeup dates have been announced and have been shared with our families and staff through school messenger and by email, and they are posted on the district website and Facebook page. I want to thank the Greater Cedar Rapids Community Foundation for granting our Metro Care Connection $30,000 to support school-based mental health services. This will provide for consultations and education to students, staff, and families by therapists from Abbey Center as part of the district's agreement with that agency. So thank the CR Community Foundation for that. I'm also pleased to share the district has received a $75,000 grant through the Iowa Demonstration Construction Grant Program grant agreement between Iowa Department of Education and the district. These funds will be used to upgrade the fire alarm system at Hiawatha Elementary School. So we appreciate that. Our Board of Education held a joint meeting with the Kirkwood Community College Board of Trustees last week. The meeting provided a great opportunity for us to discuss mutual interests and cooperative partnerships. Maren was there representing the Gazette and did several postings and stories as a result. And we had one patron, Kathy, thank you for your interest. But it was a good opportunity, and we appreciate the Board of Trustees willing to meet with us. It's my pleasure to officially congratulate, although I know that Sue has mentioned this in her comments before, the National Board Certified Teachers. Of the 20 Iowa teachers earning NBC in 2013, 6 teach in Cedar Rapids Community School District. In fact, we have the most in the state at 50. So congratulations to those individual teachers. The state legislative session begins. I want to remind everyone of the importance in staying informed on legislative matters related to public education. Our public schools belong to the public and are funded through public initiatives approved by our legislature and signed into law by our governor. The state level policy makers determine the budgets and laws that play a critical role in our work. You, the citizens of the school district, play a critical role in monitoring these activities. We encourage parents, grandparents, staff, and citizens to follow along. Key topics to watch this year are really a sad news story for Iowa. Iowa total expenditures per pupil have fallen in recent years when compared to the rest of the nation. In just 12 months, Iowa fell from 31st to 37th in per pupil spending as compared to the national average. In fact, Iowa spends $1,514 less per student than the national average. This is a critical issue for schools and the students we serve. Throughout this session, you might find interesting information on the Urban Education Network website. This is a good source of relative information regarding educational initiatives. The site is at www.uen-ia.org. Finally, tonight, we're introducing a new segment entitled Alumni Spotlight. These highlights of district graduates are an extension of the Student Success Campaign that was launched this fall with our postcard outreach. In the coming months, several alumni video spots will be shared at this time in our board meeting agenda. We have a rich and diverse group of alumni, and we're proud to applaud their success.
We are proud to spotlight District alum Tim Shue. Tim is a 1977 district graduate who recently completed a tour of Disney's The Little Mermaid, and just prior to that, Broadway's Evita. Earlier, he could be seen on stage playing Daddy Warbucks in Annie, and before that, he was on New York's Broadway stage as the mayor of Sweet Apple, Ohio in Bye Bye Birdie. And those are just a few examples of his most recent on-stage work. During his career, Tim Shue has performed in theater productions and with symphonies and orchestras worldwide, including the National Symphony with Marvin Hamlisch at the Kennedy Center's 35th anniversary celebration. For 15 years, Tim has produced Broadway Sings on Park Avenue, a concert to benefit children affected by HIV and AIDS. He also works extensively to educate and assist at-risk children. Tim's work as a vocal director, teacher, clinician, and adjudicator for theater, choral, and show choir festivals have taken him around the world, and it all began at Kennedy High School. During high school, Tim was active in all choral groups at Kennedy. He also played trombone in the concert, marching and jazz bands, and in the orchestra. Additionally, he was a member of the Cougar football and tennis teams, as well as its intramural basketball program. His favorite classes were English, drama, and math, and he is quick to credit his teachers for helping him to develop the ability to multitask and for defining his career goals and path in the education and performing arts field. Says Tim, "I'm proud to see Kennedy continue to be a model and is at the top for fine arts, sports, and academics. I feel very blessed and fortunate to have had that JFK experience." Tim currently resides in New York City with his wife Jane and his proudest production of all, his 26-year-old son. We are very proud to spotlight District alum Tim Shue and to congratulate him on his wonderful career.
Off to a new highlight for the district. Community members who have suggestions for the Alumni Spotlight are invited to share the names and contact information with Community Relations Supervisor Marcia Hughes. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to do this once a month, and all of us will be asked to narrate, as I did for Tim Shue. So Marcia will be reaching out to you, and I hope that you can participate. And if you can't, that's fine. We'll all fill in for each other. But I think it's going to be really exciting and interesting to see all the things that our alum have done. A couple things I want to talk about. We have Chalk Talk coming up this Saturday from 9 to 10:30 at the Edgewood Road Hy-Vee. Gary and I will be hosting. Any other board member is certainly welcome to join us. We will have that posted, if it's not already, I think, on our district website, and we will get that out in a more public way. Another comment is you're going to see a proliferation of art in this building over the next couple of months. I met with Shive Hattery, and I've talked with Dr. Benson and Laurel, and we're just going to fill the place with student artwork. This was just a beginning that you saw in our boardroom. Also, there's if you go in the hallway here before you get to the private offices, there are more and more cases with art being swapped in and out through, I think, is it once a month or something?
Yes. Yep.
So look for more. Also, the same monitor is in front of our receptionist desk, so people that are coming in can see what's going on. The art that you saw tonight was from fourth graders at Hiawatha. Okay, that's all I had. Any board reports? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into communications, delegations, and petitions. I do have two requests. First one is Sue Clapp. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Sue Clapp, 2242 Evergreen Street, Northeast Cedar Rapids. And once again, I'm proud to announce another great example of our involved and engaged teachers. Recently, the Center for Teaching Quality, the National Education Association, and the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards announced the National Teacher Leadership Initiative. This is a joint endeavor to develop a new generation of leaders within the teaching profession. This pilot is a product of these three organizations' shared vision for teacher leadership, advancing the profession. The long-term goals of the initiative are: 1, define the foundational competencies of teacher leadership; 2, develop relevant experiences and supports to help teachers cultivate those competencies; and 3, to activate teachers to be leaders for their profession as a result of their participation in this process. 150 educators representing Arizona, Colorado, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, and Iowa were chosen for the 2014 pilot year. Of those 150 educators, 5 of our district teachers applied for and were selected for this initiative. Sarah Arnold, Pete Clancy, Tanya Johnson, Melissa Osborne, and Kelly Ponick will be representing us in this endeavor. NEA President Dennis Van Rokel was quoted as saying, "This initiative will ultimately develop expertise and engage thousands of teacher leaders in leadership work in schools, with NEA affiliates and in state houses throughout the country, because every student should have the best possible educators in their schools." The program will prepare and support the next generation of our profession's leaders to meet the demands of the 21st century teaching professional and ensure the success of their students. Once again, Cedar Rapids Community School District teachers have stepped up and are actively engaged in activities to promote our profession. Congratulations and thank you, Sarah, Pete, Tanya, Melissa, and Kelly.
Thank you, Sue. Next is Lawrence Wenklowski.
Hi, Lawrence Wenklowski, 4234 Morel Road, Northeast Cedar Rapids. One of the best methods of marketing this school district receives is free from the local media. As our schools within the district achieve state and national recognition for the quality of education our students receive, our community finds out that our biggest success story is our schools, not a few students. After the school district worked hard in cutting budgets by removing unnecessary expenditures, the district then proceeded and wasted $64,000 on an unneeded marketing campaign. How will it be determined that we will actually receive at least $64,000 of value out of this project? This $64,000 could have gone to PPEL project funding or to buy around 150 iPads. Maybe the mailing campaign should have been on how PPEL money is used within our district, along with signage to inform community on the referendum vote. I don't know if the school board approved this project in advance or not, but it is a responsibility of this school board to make sure the school district is spending every dollar wisely. So thank you to whomever it was that wasted $64,000 of our tax dollars. I would like to know what the plans were to pass the referendum in September, as I believe the goal was to keep the turnover low and the referendum under the radar, since signs were placed in and on buildings, not out in front where the whole community could see them. I am one of the first persons who admits the school district needs additional dollars for all the projects. But how did we get into this situation? I believe this situation was not just caused from the legislator cutting funding for education or the flood of 2008. I'd like to see the district generate a report for the last 10 years to show how these and other factors caused us to be in this situation. Despite the fact that there is no good funding formula for education, I believe there is a correlation between school taxes and property values. However, the idea of increasing the income surtax to help fund the referendum is absurd and another form of wealth distribution. And to allow the school board to fluctuate the amount of money that can be designated as an income surtax and a property tax is unacceptable. I just don't trust the school board that much. For the most part, property values will not fluctuate that much from year to year. That makes it easier to predict estimated property taxes someone will have to pay in the coming years. However, taxable income can change drastically from year to year as a result of change in employment status, bonuses, sales of investment, and sales of property, like farms. Then there is the final cash out, death. I don't believe any school district should have the right to tax individuals' income. Investments sold may have been made when an individual did not live in the school district. As retirees start to cash in their retirement accounts and investments, they shouldn't have to pay an income surtax on those distributions. I don't care as much about the amount of money the school district will be asking for in future referendums as I do care about where the money is coming from. If this school district puts another referendum up for vote that has a surtax component, I will campaign and fight hard against that referendum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I noticed someone just walked in, and you're a little late, but I see that you filled out a request to address the board. Would you like to do that? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Just please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bernard Clayton. I live at 1604 6th Avenue Southeast. I'll be very brief. Good evening to all y'all. I was reading the paper today. They're discussing touching the pension fund that the teachers are supported by. I'm asking you as a school board that when this happens, I'm asking y'all as a political entity in the state, challenge that. I really would appreciate that y'all would do that y'all will be a supporter of your teachers and show your teachers and all the other people that work for you that you're really behind them. And I think that y'all could probably be the first, when this subject comes up, y'all should be the first school district in the state that each member of the school board says that we're not buying into this. And usually when they talk about destroying people's pension, particularly people in the public sector, they always bring up, we don't have it, you shouldn't have it. That's not a good argument. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have consent agenda. Can I entertain a motion in a second, please?
I so move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Discussion items? Yes, I'm sorry. Who is that? Oh, that's you, John.
Hi, Mary. I'm down here.
So,
I'm very interested in the expansion of the School Improvement Advisory Committee and more meetings. I'm just wondering if maybe Trace could just address that for us, a little bit of the purpose. I think it's good for the public to understand what we're doing with that.
yes, thanks, Dr. Laverty, or Director Laverty.
I'll take
You'll
it,
take the
doctor, whatever. Yeah. I've been called worse, so.
Just handing out free degrees tonight. So, as we looked at the SIAC committee in the past, it's been a smaller group, and they've met the compliance of the law, but haven't necessarily been as active as we would like. And so, our team decided that the SIAC committee needed to take on a bigger role, given many of the issues that we're looking at related to magnet schools and calendar changes and things like that. So we decided to expand this group to ensure we had lots of teachers and parents and business leaders and community leaders that can help us with these decisions. So then also having a larger number, 56 I think is on the, these folks are really busy, and so when we have a meeting, even if half of them show up, we've got a nice representation. So those were the two rationales for expanding it, and we're going to ask that they meet 3-4 times a year to address and look at some of the bigger issues that we want them to.
Great, I appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions about items on consent? John?
Sorry, I just wanted to point out, There's been a lot of articles recently about the lack of child mental health care and psychiatric care in the state of Iowa. The Gazette ran a long article about it specific to the state of Iowa. And I just see we have another 28E agreement with Tanninger Place to provide mental health services to one of our middle schools. And I think it's critical that the public keep in mind that besides just traditional, what we think of education, we are also working with community-based partners for childhood mental health issues, and it's costing us as a school district and taxpayers lots and lots of money, and it's a growing concern. So, again, just another example of where the districts, I believe these are general fund monies, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but specific monies that are going to help in mental health for children.
Okay. Piggybacking on that, Mary Ellen, I think that there's some conversation regarding the type of services that Tanninger Place offers at the state level, and I think this had to do with another school district, a similar arrangement. But something we're going to need to pay attention to. They may, okay.
Right.
All
We are
right.
monitoring that very closely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just let us know if that's going to impact our programs. We would appreciate that. Okay, seeing no other comments, this is a roll call action due to the personnel report.
Director Laverty? Aye. Director Anhalt? Aye. Director Witt? Aye. Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
Director Rosenthal?
Aye.
President Meisterling?
Aye. Next, I'm going to turn this over to Dave and Laurel to talk about board governance.
Thank you. Tonight, we're bringing forward a number of regulations, policies, and procedures for you to look at. The one that we really wanted to point out, of course, we'll answer any questions that you have, but the one that we really wanted to point out was Policy 407, which was a policy that we had brought to you in December. Based on the feedback and reflection, we took it to Policy Review Committee last week, and we've brought forward some revisions to that policy. Also coming forward is the entire Article 700, which just deals with fiscal management. And again, we would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions or comments? I appreciate the work that you did on 407. I think that it encompasses more of what we were interested in, than from the previous version, so I appreciate the work. I also happened to be in the building when the policy committee met, and it's a nice group of very engaged professionals in our school district, and I appreciate the time, great deal of time on our policies, so thank you. Comments? Yes.
Yeah, I had a comment about the attendance permits,
Yes.
and it talks about that the forms are available from the school that where you want to submit the permit, and I was wondering if there's any reason we couldn't make those permits available electronically.
Carla, would you have any information for her?
I don't see why we couldn't make them available electronically online.
I mean, they need to be turned into the school where you want.
They
a permit
do,
to.
yes.
But I think if we made them easier for parents to get, that would just be one less hurdle. And I've had people
I agree.
asking me already again, what are the rules, when are the dates, when are the forms available? And I don't see any reason the form couldn't be available starting September. It just has a deadline of
Does
February
have a
1st or
deadline.
whatever the date is, so.
Yeah.
I just-
March 1st is the
1st.
deadline, yeah.
Usually they're available February 1st, and you turn them in by March 1st, so. So I
That'll
think if it
follow up
was
on that.
online, so that would just affect the wording in the policy. So I think that would just make things more available to people.
All right.
That would affect the regulation, and so we'll just go forward with that if you would like.
I had the same question, so that's great.
Okay, Gary?
A couple of items. The budget adoption regulation 106, it looks like it's being, regulation 700.2, looks like it's being removed. I assume that as I look at the wording there and what has been changed into the budget planning, that it's put into the planning. Just maybe a suggestion that the budget planning then would have some indication in the title that it's also the adoption, planning/adoption.
Right. Yeah, we had that discussion. I know the policy committee had it on homework, should extended learning opportunities, because people, if they look at the policies, they keyword search it, so Steve, you can do that.
You need a microphone.
Yes. Arja, I think I can hear him.
The policy 700.2 was deleted and was using the IASB model. So it's a very good start. We certainly could make that change.
Absolutely, we can follow through on that.
And did Gary have a second?
Yes?
And also, this is just, as I was reading through Regulation 702.1, it's not a change, but again, it's some wording that I think sometimes many of us get asked. It has to do with bidding, and the policy does say that we don't have to accept necessarily the lowest bid, but maybe give consideration to local businesses that are located within the district, and it could be responsible bidding too, I think is also worded. So it gives us, it doesn't necessarily have to be just the lowest bidding.
That's correct.
Right.
I just think it's good for the public to realize that it's there.
And I believe
I'm
that
asked
comes,
several times about that.
that comes straight out of Iowa code.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Other comments? Alan?
Nice job on the homework language. I like that. You guys did a great job cleaning that up and bringing it up to date. And talks about 21st century learners. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, again, thank you for your work on this. We very much appreciate it. We're going to now be turning over to Carla to talk about the right tools.
Good evening. I am thrilled this evening to have two of our curriculum facilitators share information with you on Right Tools training. They are Susan Van Wart, who is our elementary language arts facilitator, and Erin Thompson, who is our secondary language arts facilitator.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting us. Erin and I are quite excited to be here to talk about our emphasis in professional learning with writing, specifically the right tools. In 2008, our elementary classrooms adopted Macmillan, McGraw-Hill, Treasure's Language Arts Reading Basal program. And as we worked toward that adoption, we learned through a variety of data points and surveys that teachers indicated that they would like to have more professional learning opportunities around the area of teaching writing effectively and teaching it well. In addition, while the Macmillan tools and strategies were good, they felt that they needed some support with supplementing them. And so the leadership at that time then did some research to determine what might be out there to support teachers in this learning. And right tools, these right tool strategies came to the fore. And so in 2010, 2011, we decided to start small. We participated in right tools training, and we had 2 sessions through the AEA. One was with for primary teachers, so an instructional coach and a primary teacher from each school went to the training, and then another session included intermediate. And the instructional coach also accompanied. The intent was then that these teachers would go back and share in their buildings. However, the feedback was that the training was so powerful that the leadership then decided that we should train all teachers. And so during the 2011-12 school year, all classroom teachers, ELL teachers, special education teachers, and PAC teachers in the elementaries began this process of being trained.
Like Susan mentioned, part of the reason that Right Tools was selected is that it has it incorporates the 3 text types that are part of the Iowa Core. So there's a training module on the informative explanatory text type, the opinion argumentative text type, as well as the narrative. As a district, we decided to start with the informative explanatory text type because it provides that solid foundation for the other 2. And we did start with the elementary teachers. And so our current state is that 100% of our elementary teachers are trained in that text type. And again, like she mentioned, that includes ELL teachers, special education teachers, as well as PAC teachers. After we got all of our elementary teachers trained, we decided this is something that we need to continue to roll out to our secondary teachers. At this point in time, 65% of our middle school teachers are trained and 25% of our high school teachers. And again, this is not just language arts teachers. These are all content area teachers. As part of the Iowa Core, they are expected to make writing an emphasis across content areas. So we are training all content area teachers. So we're continuing that track with our secondary teachers and moving forward with our elementary teachers. And so we did start training our elementary teachers on the narrative text type in December. In our current plans, trainings that we already have scheduled for this year, we will continue that narrative training for our elementaries with the anticipation that by the end of this month, 100% of our elementary teachers will be trained. Continuing, again, the informative explanatory with our middle and high. And by the end of August this year, we anticipate 100% of our middle school teachers and 50% of our high school teachers trained. And as we continue to roll out this training, we will continue to offer opportunities to our teachers as we continue to see the positive feedback that is coming from them. These are several quotations that we've pulled from the feedback that they have to fill out at the end of each of their training sessions. And we've kind of pulled a variety of them so you can see the impact that it's having. One of the notations is that it has that cross-curricular impact, and we're seeing that in our elementary schools. We also see that it has a very positive impact on our special education population and some of our struggling writers. And so, again, as we continue to see that positive feedback, we're going to continue to offer that opportunity for our teachers.
I'd like to set the stage. We thought it would be helpful for you to be able to see some students in action using these tools and strategies. And so we're going to take you on a little trip to Mrs. Harmoning's classroom at Johnson Elementary School, second graders. And these students have really been emphasizing, this video was from last year, but they've been really working hard on these strategies for about 2 weeks. And you're going to see the common graphic organizer, common tools that students use. One of the strategies they use is color coding. So each part of an informational, like a standalone paragraph, includes 3 colors. So you'll see that in the video clip as well. You're going to have an opportunity to hear the students do something called an oral rehearsal. So they're going to talk their plan, which then strengthens their writing when they actually put pencil to paper. And you're going to hear some academic terms. You'll also be reminded that in second grade, the tooth fairy likely does visit those homes frequently. Oh, it didn't. There he goes.
We're learning how to do our paragraphs and about topic, audience, and keywords.
We were turning and talking, and there's a certain reason for each color.
Well, we have these cubes, and we have like color coding. The green means the topic, and the yellow, the big idea, and the reds are the tell me more. And the green is the conclusion. Help others.
I am talking to my partner, and I'm putting the blocks on her fingers in the order.
It helps my friends, and it helps me get my ideas. I know what colors is which one, and it makes me write better because I know the right things to do.
First, you should always be helpful. You can help someone if they are hurt. The transition words?
I did first, next, and last.
They help me connect the big idea to the big idea to the next big idea. To your friends.
You should, when someone's left out, you should include them. If they're stuck on something, I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to teach them so they can do it by themselves next time. My friends helping me so I get help if I'm stuck, if I don't know what to write. Well, by myself, I wouldn't get as much to my brain because my partners could tell me some things or help me, and with the colors, I know what to do.
And they do. The next slide that you'll see is some data. And in the elementary classrooms, we have common district writing assessments. And so this particular slide is about this informational text writing. And what we wanted to do is show progress over time. And so in the far left side, you'll see our current fourth graders. So the lighter blue bar indicates in 2012, the first year that we began collecting this data, 55% of our at the time they were second graders, 55% of the students were scored proficiently on that assessment. The following year, when those students were third graders, 60% of them grew. And then in the middle, our current fifth graders, you can see the data that supports from their previous year to the next year, they continue to grow. And then the final column indicates that last year, our current sixth graders, 75% of our fifth graders were scored proficiently on that assessment. So we see promise in the use of these tools and strategies and expect that to continue.
In addition to seeing widespread positive impact from the Right Tools training, we also are seeing it in some of our specialized populations. This is an example from our Roosevelt Middle School, and it's a cohort, a 2-year cohort group. The first year of ELL, they did not have the Right Tools training, and the second year they did. I'm sure you are aware that this year Cedar Rapids is one of only 3 schools in the state to have met their AMAOs, and the language arts English language learner facilitator attributes a lot of that in their writing scores to the implementation of the Right Tools training for their teachers. We've definitely seen a lot of positive growth in allowing them to clearly express themselves, giving them the structures to do that. And so just, again, we've just kind of given you a very brief overview of kind of the training that we're providing to teachers and the impact that we're seeing. Are there any questions?
Is the training for the teachers, is it an all-day training to
Yes, it
prepare
is.
them to go into the classroom?
Yes, it is. And then also as a district, we have taken some of our early dismissal afternoons to follow up on that implementation, to strengthen it, to share ideas with each other, and to continue to work hard to use the tools effectively.
John?
Susan and Aaron, this is terrific, and I must make a disclaimer here that you were my daughter's teacher 2 years in a row, Susan, and did an amazing job, so I appreciate this continued work that you're doing. I'm curious, when we met with the Kirkwood board, we had some table discussions about how critical employers are finding communication skills, writing and reading, and being able to comprehend. Is there a connection here that we're seeing with the writing and the reading and being able to build that confidence as they move into the middle schools with this new program? I'm assuming there's a connection somehow.
Well, would you like the short answer?
Short answer is fine.
Yes. I think that there have been many research reports. There's a Carnegie report, a meta-analysis about the connection between writing about learning, writing about reading, and how it solidifies understanding. And I would say that teachers definitely agree, and just recent comments have been, they know they need to do more reading to prove learning for students to process their learning. So I would say absolutely this is aligned with their.
I was so impressed with those second graders at Johnson being able to communicate their thoughts to on video like that in a public sort of forum. So that's great.
And that was just 2 weeks into the instruction of using the program.
Wow.
Some of our intermediate teachers got to see this very same videotape last year, and they were astounded at those second graders as well. And they asked the question, how long have they been really working on that? So the tools are effective.
Other questions or comments? I had just a few. First off, how much does the tooth fairy leave these days?
We might invite a second grader to write to you.
I would like that very
okay,
much.
we'll
I'd
work
be
on
very
that.
curious about that. Secondly, there's some conversation about the Iowa Core, actually Core nationwide, and certainly the Iowa Core, and it might be under a significant amount of attack this upcoming session, at least in our state. And this is a perfect example of what Iowa Core provides for our students. And I think we should generate some more of those so that we're always talking consistently about the importance of the core and writing across curriculum is, like I said, thank you for bringing that to us, and what a great program. And lastly, we love data, and we love feedback, and that proves to us empirically that these are effective programs in helping our students achieve. So thank you very much, and I loved your enthusiasm, too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you. Okay, next, I'm going to turn this over to Trace Pickering to give us a big update. A BIG update. Big update.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be brief. I just want to give a short update on the Big Ideas program. We have right now about 12 students. We're gathering, trying to get some more kids here for the second trimester still here. But I want to tell you a little bit about an experience I had last week with them. Last week they had symposium where all the students came about 4:30 in the afternoon, came together and they shared their projects and their progress. And you can see the bulleted list of their projects, but to hear them talk about it was truly amazing. I wish I had it on video. They were passionate, engaged. They were really, interested in each other's projects. And when I would ask them questions about what have you been learning, what kind of important, deep content have you been learning, they could go on and on about pretty in-depth things. And so we're excited about where this is going and the results that we're seeing preliminarily. A couple of big items to note. We have a student, the gal who's doing the phytoremediation project. Her research has been tested, and she's come across some new findings that people didn't necessarily know before. And Vanderbilt University has found her, or she found them, and I believe next week she goes to the Quad Cities to do an interview where she likely will be offered a full ride scholarship, largely based upon her project that Big allowed her to focus on and do. So that's an amazing early story. On the other side of the spectrum, we have a student who entered our program middle of the first trimester, failing virtually every class. The principals and counselors said, let's put him in Big for a class and see if we can't spark something, which is also part of our philosophy and our belief. And so he joined and has been working on composing authentic scores and music and learning the software and all that behind that technology. He pulled his failing grades out to a 1.4 grade point average after the first try, which doesn't sound great, but that's a substantial move upward. I called his principal today. He's at a 2.0 right now in this try. And so again, it's just an N of 1, but we strongly believe this approach can really connect with kids and re-engage them in their love of learning. Finally, the last thing I'd like to share with you is about noon today we submitted a grant for $100,000 to the Next Generation Learning Challenge. They are funding innovative, out-of-the-box, break-the-mold kind of school designs, and so we put our application in. I don't want to jinx us, but their criteria and what they're asking for and what we've done with Big and what our community has done and asking for with the magnet schools and others, we are very well aligned. So if we don't get it, I'm going to blame the writer for not getting it.
I think you would too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So that grant beholds us to nothing other than they provide that $100,000 for the next year for our district to investigate, plan, do mini pilots, and lay out a design. And at that point in time, a year from now, we could choose, if we want it, we could choose to go for the next $450,000, which would help us actually launch such an effort. So very excited about the things going on and the results we're getting there. So.
Terrific. Comments or questions for Trace? You like the direction. Thank you for the. And you're right. It's reaching kids that we've otherwise failed or they've not been engaged or connected in their school. So that's terrific. And next, I'm going to turn this over to Dave Benson and Steve Graham to talk about a PPEL update, physical plant and equipment levy.
I'll kick off the discussion at your place. Steve Graham will talk about this document in his presentation. In our review of the situation, we decided to show you not only a maximum expenditure and a continuation of our current effort, but also a midpoint split between those two. At this time, Steve's going to talk about as part of his presentation, the dates available for us. If we take the first available date in April, we would have to hustle. The next date is September. We could have that, or there's a later date in 14. So what we need from you tonight is a fairly high-level discussion of what you want to see going forward. What kind of timeline are you talking about? How would you like to see the program go forward? Is this a property tax issue? As mentioned earlier, is a sales tax component a wise thing to mix in that?
You mean income tax?
Income tax, excuse me. And basically, we need some direction from the board on what you would like to see, and going forward, we'll be interested in the board's discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Benson. There is some information here that is a review of the PPEL fund for the board members who would like to be reminded, but also perhaps for those who may be watching and need to be reminded of what the PPEL fund is used for and the importance of the PPEL fund. So the PPEL fund is for the purchase and improvement of grounds. That is what we use it for. Our operations and maintenance of our infrastructure of our school district is very much dependent on the PPEL revenue, and we also are able to purchase or lease equipment that's greater than $500. Our school buses are the benefactors. The purchase of school buses also from our PPEL revenue stream. The PPEL funds are very specific under the Iowa Code. We can't use PPEL for salaries and benefits, so the stakeholders in our community should be very comfortable knowing that there are very definitive purposes for which the PPEL funds are used. So the current state is that we have a 10-year term that expires on the 30th of June, fiscal 15. We are generating with a rate of 67 cents, 100% local property tax, not any income surtax mix, 100% local property tax, and that generates roughly $3.5 million every year. The word reactive maintenance, I would characterize that as perhaps a little bit less reactive, but certainly we know what we need to do. We have a very long list of infrastructure needs. Our infrastructure facilities master plan process identified $20 million in annual operations and maintenance needs, and we have $5 million essentially for those needs. So we are a little bit reactionary, but we try to do as much as we can also and being very proactive and planful with the limited resources that we have. Yes?
Translate into about maybe like a $25 per $100,000 house, is that?
We estimated that at about, for a $150,000 home, about $3 per month.
Okay.
That it would take to support. And that $3 per month was at our maximum. That was at the maximum at $1.34. We talked about this during our campaign. So I'm doing a little extrapolation here, $1.50 per month for a $150,000 homeowner.
Okay.
At any rate, the PPEL has been around for at least 40 years. We've been renewing on 10-year cycles, and the current rate ends again on the 2015, June the 30th of 2015. And our rate has been steady at 67 cents since the beginning of the PPEL levy. So the renewal considerations really are three different things. The term. 10 years is the maximum by law, but it could be less than 10. It would be select in whole year increments, 1, 2, 5, 10, et cetera, but no more than 10 years. And we would want to begin that on July the 5th, presumably, of 2015, to continue the revenue without any interruption. The levy rate, the maximum by law, is $1.34. And the funding source, again, is possible for property tax and income surtax blend, or 100% property tax. We can choose whichever. So those are three key questions. And then the fourth key one, obviously, is the time. When do we go before the voters and take this? And as Dr. Benson alluded to earlier, time is very, very short for an April 1st election date because we have a 45-day filing deadline with the county auditor. That places us having a board resolution passed and submitted to the county auditor with ballot on the 14th of February. So it's fairly tight. And then our other two opportunities in calendar year 2014 are the 9th of September and the 2nd of December, with, again, the filing deadlines that correspond to those two election dates. This is a very key slide. I want to divide it, the top half away from the bottom half. So let's just focus on the top half. The top half is strictly the voter-approved PPEL. We've got A, B, C. We've got the renewal at the current rate, so there would be no change. These are just examples, merely examples. The current levy rate at 67 cents would generate, again, $3.46 million. B is the state maximum rate that we had on our September ballot. At $1.34 would generate $6.94 million. And then this new midpoint that is just as a basis of example for the board to ponder at a 98-cent levy rate, and that would generate $5.03 million. Now, the bottom half of the slide is very important because the board-approved PPEL is always a part of the PPEL equation. Every year when we certify our budget, we include in the certified budget a one-year PPEL board-approved renewal, so that it's a 33 cent, which is the maximum by state law, and it generates $1.71 million. So we take the top half of this slide plus the bottom half of this slide, that equals A, B, and C of this slide. So we're combining them both together now, the voter and the board-approved PPEL. And Rob is going to be talking about some specific project examples in just a moment here. But everything that Rob has been doing over this last week, and I'm very thankful for the fine work that Rob and his staff have done to put together all three of these project scenarios for every district building that we have, providing both the A, the B, and the C. And we do have some examples to give you a highlight on the PowerPoint presentation in elementary and middle and high school. So at any rate, the basis for that is based upon these three revenue levels. This is an annual basis. And finally, what Rob is showing us is an assumption of a 10-year duration that may or may not come to fruition. So Rob, why don't you take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. We went ahead and put the plan together and added the midpoint plan. The current plan that we have is the $5.2 million plan, virtually stayed the same. The midpoint plan, which is in the middle there, is what we've added. Some of the criteria that we looked at when we were putting the plan together is obviously we wanted to make sure that student and staff safety was our #1 priority. So in the current $5.2 million plan, you see a lot of student and staff safety in that plan. Building security is always a priority to us. The building envelope, we spent a lot of time looking at the building itself, making sure the roof, the masonry, the windows were all very important to us as far as getting the outside of that building sealed up. Energy conservation was right next in line, looking at ways to reduce our energy cost with lighting, with HVAC, and those types of things. And then last but not least is general facility repairs such as bleachers, auditorium seating, lockers, all of those things needed. But we had to figure out what our priority were, and our priority was so that we can base budgets based upon those things. So when you see these plans, you can kind of see the criteria that we followed in there with security and safety in the building envelope. But as you can see here, the $5 million plan is in the top. Midpoint is 6.8 million, and then we also have the maximum funded plan at 8.6. And you'll notice the differences over on the far right-hand corner on the bottom. You'll notice that the difference in the amount that will be spent at it. Now, this is Cleveland, and in your books, you'll notice a range of different pricing between them. Cleveland, for some reason, is the only building that stayed the same from the maximum plan to the minimum, or the midpoint plan. That's the only building that did that. I'll give you an example of McKinley. You'll be able to notice there that there is I believe it was, almost $1 million in the midpoint plan that will be spent there versus 1.2 million for the maximum funded plan. And then we have Kennedy as well. To the $1.3 million plan. We have all of the plans in the books, so they're all there. They're open. You can see what we're doing with the money that we're proposing. And I think with staff spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the needs are for the district in each one of these facilities. So I think it's a great plan. The main difference between the maximum plan and the midpoint plan is we had to give something up between the two. And really the big thing that we had to give up between the maximum and the midpoint was the HVAC projects. If you look at Grant and Erskine, you'll see that the air conditioning or the HVAC projects are taken out of there. So it's a difference. Those two buildings have huge impacts dollar-wise. Some of the building envelope money we had to reduce in those projects. What else was there? Some restroom renovation projects we had to reduce from the maximum to the midpoint range. There's no auditorium seating money available in the midpoint range. And those are the big one. A little bit of roofing as well. So those are the main differences between the maximum and the midpoint range. You got more?
Okay, let's open it up for questions and comments and discussion. John?
I'll just say, based on when we first presented this, the needs haven't gone away. If we have, older buildings, you have beautiful buildings like McKinley and things that have been well maintained, it's going to take money to do preventative maintenance. So we keep deferring maintenance on these things. We're going to run into issues in not too many years down the road. So this all still makes sense to me, and I think that putting it in terms, and I'm not sure how we get this across, but we need to, that, the average homeowner, whatever it is, $150,000 home, $3 a month. I can't even go to the local fast food hamburger place and get a meal anymore for $3, hardly. So with kids in this district and wanting the district to be there in great shape, physically beyond when my kids are there for this community, I think that personally we need to go for the money. And from what I understand, the rest of the districts around us are at that level. I personally would like to stay away from the income levy part of it and just keep it with the tax levy personally, but that's my opinion on it. So.
Okay, I'd like to hear everyone's opinion. Ann?
I agree with John that we should do the $1.34. I think, my business is maintenance and operations, and we do as good as we can with what we have, but I think we'd be irresponsible if we weren't trying to take care of more. And I think the ballot language was incredibly confusing. And one way to decrease that, it's going to be confusing, but one way to decrease that would be to not do the income surtax piece. And I think that would make it a lot simpler. And also the fact that we're talking about less than $50 a year for so many people in town. I think even the people who would argue that it's harder on the people that have fixed income, we're not talking about a huge amount of money. So realize there's budget pressures on everybody. But it would be a lot simpler if it was just on property tax.
And I guess my worry is if we don't start repairing the safety of our children within the schools, that's my real concern. I know my son came back, he's a graduate of Jefferson High School for his class reunion, and he was shocked of the condition of Jefferson High School. I mean, the cafeteria looked great, but he was shocked. So we have to do something. I think you can patch for only so long, but for me, I'm concerned about the safety of our children in the schools, as well as our teachers and folks that visit within our schools, so the entire community.
And the amount that you would be supportive of? $1.34 or the midpoint?
I'd say the $1.34, but midpoint would be good too. We need the funds.
Okay. Keith?
I think we need to do some surveys, some more surveys, see whether the midpoint has a chance of passing over the $1.34. The $1.34 is going to be rejected. That's a gigantic problem for the district. And also look at, if we pass the midpoint, can we revisit this in a few years and then renew it, maybe at a higher level, just see where we're at. The problem is growing on us, which has been shown by the 100 million to now 300 million, correct, of needs, which just puts a little dent in it. So we definitely need it, but we also definitely need to pass it and be sure that whatever we do, that passes. And if that means midpoint, then that's where we have to go. But I do think, bottom line, we need to increase it too.
Right.
Is this property tax or a mix?
I think probably property tax right now is most acceptable, but as we look down the road, we need more information on our total funding. At some point, we may need to look at some bonding for some projects, et cetera, and how do we balance that? How does it really, who has to pay, and what will the voters accept?
Alan?
In 2012, we had Shive Hattery do that facility study,
Right.
and it was very extensive, and they had a group come together. What I really expected to happen at that point was this community would get around that study, and they put their money where their mouth is, and this would pass unanimously, 75%. The fact it was during a school election, I know we had a reason to do that, to kind of save on costs. I would rather see this happen sooner than later. I mean, we could drag this on and debate and wring our hands and talk about studies. Keith, I understand that, but it's pretty simple to me. It's if either community is supportive of this or not, no matter what the amount is. I mean, heck, they could, the way you're talking, they could reject the one we have is So I think you go for the $1.34. You make a case for a limited list. I think that's where Ann was going, was this list is so open-ended, and it creates confusion for people, and I would rather have it be more, roofing alone. If you look at the roofs in the parking lots, you could fund it alone there. Those are a mess. And some people, they need to have things simplified. And so I'd say the sooner the better, $1.34, and keep the information, the ballot language very clear.
And are you supporting this as property tax or a mix of income and property?
Just keep it simple, property tax.
Gary?
Well, this community has been very supportive of our schools and our buildings over the last 40 years plus. It wasn't that long ago that this community passed a $40 million bond issue for our building. It was the largest bond issue ever carried in the state. So I have questions of why now, after 40 years of PPEL passage, that we didn't see a success on the last one. So again, I think with Keith, I want to see more information on what we need to do to go forward. I think April is definitely too soon to put anything forward. At the very minimum, September, and then putting together we have to have a PEBL. We really have to have it at what level. I'm not sure without further information. It has to be something that will be successful, that will pass. I don't want to put something out and do it 2 or 3 times in order to get something through. So I want something that the next time out we're successful with and we have a successful plan. And the same question would go with whether we use the income surtax or property tax. I would need the information of what will the community support would be the best way to go forward with it. And I think we can sit and explain, away the concerns, but the fact is that it didn't pass. But 40 years of staying at the same level, certainly maintenance costs have not stayed the same. As we go forward, I think we have to show what we've done with our PEBL over the years, the money. Some questions that I heard that, well, why are our buildings in such dire need? Did you not take care of them? Or, why all of a sudden now we need to double? So I think that information needs to come out as we move forward with it. So,
Any other comments now that you've heard others express their opinions? Ann?
I think September date's more reasonable than April. I didn't comment on that earlier.
John?
I agree, September. I'd also like to just point out again the whole bus issue. We're behind on keeping our bus fleet where it needs to be. They're safe, they meet codes and inspections and all those sorts of things, but we're behind. And again, this is, like Nancy said, this is getting to be a safety issue. We need to be ahead. We keep deferring these things. Maintenance has gone up, but the more we defer, you either pay now or you pay a lot later. And I heard, Larry, you said that to me directly one time, pay now or you pay later, and you're going to pay a lot more later. So let's get this done, and like Gary said, get it done the first time around. So,
Okay, hearing your comments, I concur that September 9th would probably be the best date to go. It would give us plenty of time to educate our public in a more meaningful way. I think that at each of our school buildings, we've posted the needs of that particular building so that our parents and our staff members are well aware of what they can benefit.
So these are posted on the website?
And at each school.
Okay.
So when you walk into a building, you should be able to see that. And hopefully our PTAs and PTOs are talking about that at the school specifically. I support $1.34. I think that 67 was the maximum, and that's what we went for, because we are an older school district. Our schools are not new facilities. The newest facility was built when, Dave?
2002, Viola
So,
Gibson.
and most of our buildings are probably an average age of 45 to 50 years. So we all know with our own homes that those maintenance costs continue to rise. So I completely support $1.34. I support going at $1.34 the second time around before I try for a midpoint. I'm not in favor of surveys. I think it costs us a lot of money. What is our turnout for a PPEL election? 3-4%. And we're going to survey the entire community. I'm not sure that's the best use of our district funds. I think just to continue to provide consistent information and education is our best route. And maybe we take some of our postcards and provide some information to the general public instead of using that for surveys. That's just a suggestion. Keith?
When I say surveys, I wasn't intending a survey of everyone. I think focus groups and some things like that could be extremely helpful to us, though. Like Chambers Commerce, some of the neighborhood groups that are out there. Most of our neighborhoods do have neighborhood groups, and, we ought to be asking them, what's your opinion? What do you think? And that's not going to cost a ton of money. So just clarify what I mean by surveys.
Choctaw is important as
And
well.
that helps us to know, it gets a better feeling of where people are really at.
Yep. Gary?
I will agree a little bit. When I say survey, I mean research done into. When we did the $40 million, that was a well-organized, well-planned, well-researched. The committee was well-organized. They knew what was possible. There were ranges. It wasn't a sure thing, but they knew why 40 million and not 60 million or 80 million. They had the data that would support the 40 million, and they were successful. It's that kind of data and research, and we have firms that are available to us. Yes, it's going to cost, but it's also going to cost if we don't in a variety of ways if we're not successful.
Okay, my other thought is, I think it is terrible ballot, confusing language, but I know that that's what we have to write, but I think it would be less confusing if we went with a straight up and went ahead and dropped the income surtax. I also think it would behoove us to organize maybe an outside committee to help us facilitate the education plan. So if someone would like to work with me on asking some folks to see if they'd be interested, I would appreciate that. And you don't have to tell me now.
I'll just say I think that that's a great idea, and that's something that we were missing before. It worked when we did the 1 cent silo tax, and helps the community understand. Again, with a complicated ballot language, it's really key to get those messages out. If you're supportive of this funding for our schools and for safety of our kids and to keep the buildings up to speed, vote yes or vote no or whatever it is. So.
Actually, when we had the bond referendum, we did have a committee working, and we had phone banks, and it was a full-blown,
Well, it was a campaign.
It was a campaign. It
And
was
the school
full-blown
district
campaign.
cannot
Yes.
actually engage in campaign activities. We can
Correct.
provide information and inform voters about what the money would be used for, but we can't do phone calls and postcards and say, vote yes. That doesn't work.
We could do postcards if they were informational.
Informational.
Without
yeah.
asking for a vote.
Right. We can say, this is the date and this is what the money would be used for.
Yeah.
But we just can't put the part, please vote yes.
Alan?
Yeah, and I don't know, Ann, what it's like at the U when you do your projects, but one comment I got was, these guys work really hard on this list, but a lot of this is very vague. You know, exterior lighting and tuck point, well, I guess tuck point's not so vague, but just some of these seem very vague, and someone suggested you have photographs of the crumbling parking lot at Washington and what it'll look like when it's done, the new parking lot, and the cost doesn't need to be $60,000 for this and $20,000 for that, because it creates skepticism. I know we're trying to make our best guess, but some of these numbers look so vague, I guess, along with the descriptions, that we can be more precise with those and what it's going to look like when it's done. And I think the big one that Rob and I talked about is energy costs. You know, anytime we talk about putting windows in at Erskine, or Steve, I've talked to you about that, is replacing the windows at Erskine or replacing that door section. Anything you can do that's going to show you a 5-year payback. Those are huge. Those are huge yeses then when you get to the booth. And of course, I think the thing I would agree with, I don't agree with the survey per se, but I do agree with the idea of engaging the PTAs and getting the vote out. That is why the votes win. You know, you get people out to that bond referendum. You know, you had a huge group go out and make sure everybody showed up to vote that day, so that the people that were the cave dwellers were overwhelmed by the yes vote.
Just one other comment. I had some negative feedback about the vote centers at our last election, and I'm not sure how much that affected turnout. So if we're having a special election for PPEL, do we get to choose if it's vote centers or not? Because I'm not sure if that's a county auditor's office decision or if that's our decision.
I think the county auditor determines that.
Well, he didn't in College Community. They still voted.
Mhm.
Ours is more spread out. But it's certainly worth a conversation.
Yes.
I think that'd be worth a conversation,
Yeah.
because I think some people were just kind of grumpy that they had to go vote and they skipped that item on the ballot, or they just voted no because we had to come out to this. You know, I usually vote 2 blocks from my house, and I drove 5 miles to the vote center. And
We need to make it convenient for
So,
folks. I agree. Gary?
The cost of this election does go back to the district.
It's borne by the
Right,
district.
So, I mean, if we're paying the cost, I would think we would be able to have some input into how that election is. And obviously, every site, polling place, typically would be more costly than having the 3.
though the vote centers had an awful lot of people.
They did. Actually, we had about the same number turnout overall as we have in
No, I
past
mean, the actual
elections.
people working at the polling place at the vote centers.
Oh.
Instead of a typical polling place that might have 4 or 5 we had, what, 20 or 25. So, I mean, I don't know how much was actually, I didn't see the bill. I don't know how much was actually saved, but.
Okay, so do you have the direction that you need to move forward?
I do, thank you.
Okay, any other questions that you would like us to answer or address?
Nope, I think
You're
we're
good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Don't forget to take your school board calendars home, and I am going to turn this over to Jill for a moment of silence.
I appreciate that, President Meisterling. We were, personnel report does reflect that we did lose a crossing guard. She passed away, and I would like to ask the board to observe a moment of silence on her behalf, and I just wanted to read a short couple sentences from the school. Cindy Kramer loved her time as a crossing guard for Wright School families. She was passionate about watching over those she called her kids, and they in turn looked forward to seeing Miss Cindy every day. She will be sorely missed by the Wright School community.
Let's give a few moments of silence, please. Thank you, Jill, and our thoughts are with that family. Okay, no other business before this board, we stand adjourned.